It's time to plug into a brighter future and focus on energy. What's up, Wisconsin? Discover practical solutions, expert insights, and real world success stories that will save you money at home and work. Here's your host, Ron Giordan.
Happy New Year, Wisconsin, and welcome to a brand new season of What's Up, Wisconsin. And what a way to kick off 2026, because this year is extra special. We're celebrating 25 years of Focus on Energy, Wisconsin's statewide program that helps people and businesses save energy and money. That means 25 years of helping homeowners, schools, farms, and businesses cut energy waste and make smart energy choices. And today we've got someone who's been here from the very beginning to tell us all about it. Please welcome Jolene Sheil, Portfolio Manager for Focus on Energy in the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin. Jolene, we're so glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to start way back in time because you were right there in the beginning, way back to the late 1990s. And what was going on in Wisconsin that led to the creation of what is now Focus on Energy?
In the mid-1990s across the U.S., several states were deregulating their utility services. California was one of them that was out in front on that, which meant that the utilities were getting back to their core function of selling and supplying energy. So the Wisconsin legislature formed a task force to examine the issue, and they ultimately decided not to deregulate Wisconsin utilities at that time. That was in the mid-1990s, 94, 95.
All right.
Other states that had deregulated were experiencing blackouts and some other negative impacts, which resulted in Wisconsin rethinking its options. While Wisconsin didn't deregulate, it did get utilities thinking about the future. And if they would deregulate, they wanted to focus on their core function of selling energy rather than operating energy efficiency programs, where they're ultimately asked to convince their customers to use less of their product. This led Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, the utility was based in Green Bay, to propose a pilot program where the Wisconsin Energy Bureau, which was housed in the Department of Administration, to operate its EE programs, energy efficiency programs, in their 26-county territory beginning in 1998. Prior to that, all the utilities operated their own conservation programs, which had to be approved by the PSC, and the pilot only ran 2 years before the legislature passed Wisconsin Act 9 to create the statewide energy efficiency.
So what were those first meetings like with this, the pilot program and then it expanding from there?
Well, there was a lot of excitement, actually, from all of the stakeholders in the state that this was being discussed. It had happened. So all the environmental groups, the people who worked on housing, the energy efficiency people thought this was really a wonderful thing. So there were several stakeholder meetings that were held. One was at the Monona Terrace, one was up at Devil's Lake, to try to decide, okay, what should these programs look like? In the beginning, and even as it relates to the pilot up in the pub service territory, the utilities favored more market transformation-like programs, like let's just keep telling customers about how good these energy efficiency products are and educate them to their benefits, and then they'll just go buy them.
Oh, right. Okay.
As opposed to giving them a rebate to go buy it.
The incentive.
They sort of wanted to wean them off of incentives and rebates. So we had days-long discussions about what market transformation was and when do we know we have it and all those types of things. But we ultimately did kind of lean into more of a rebate-centered program, incentives, than just market transformation.
And so Focus on Energy officially launched in 2001. And what did it really look like back then?
The legislation under Act 9 shaped some of the program structure, and for the rest of it, we kind of borrowed from other established statewide programs that were going on in, like Vermont is the classic example, and it's probably the one that's longer than the Focus on Energy program. The legislation required the Department of Administration to hire nonprofit administrators to operate the program. They weren't being operated per se by personnel in the state government. So we managed contracts for these program administrators. We had one for residential, we had one for business. Those were bid out and hired in 2001. And then in early 2002, we had a third, which was the renewables administrator. And then we also had an independent evaluator that would look at the savings that were achieved by the program, a marketing agency, and then what we have called, and this is a piece that we borrowed from Vermont, the compliance agent, who would look at the implementers, make sure they were adhering to any policies and procedures that were established for the program, and also to all the elements of their contracts with the Wisconsin Energy Bureau.
So you had a lot of different people,
Yeah.
agencies or different working on one thing.
Yep, those were private sector contractors. Yep.
Well, that leads into where we are now in over 25 years. So how has it changed then? How did focus change from 2001 to where it is now?
Yeah, the major change came with the passage of new legislation. It was called 2005 Wisconsin Act 141. That became effective in July of 2007. So that's the middle of a fiscal year. We immediately changed everything to calendar years, so that created a little bit of confusion for a little bit. The primary reason that that legislation was passed, it came out of a task force that had been established. And the primary reason was that they wanted to keep the dollars kind of out of state budgets. They wanted to privatize it in a sense. But this also established new structure, new policies and procedures to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the program. And also a very important piece, it gave the utilities the marching orders to create and fund these programs. So the utilities came out much more at a higher, focus, no pun intended, than they did previously when the program was at DOA. So the utilities ended up forming a board, the Statewide Energy Efficiency and Renewable Administration, or CERA, as we call it, to fulfill its responsibilities under the legislation. And it established the relationship and responsibilities of the PSC and that utility board, which still exists today. So I would say the first big moment that changed the direction of the program was the first quadrennial planning process, which happened in 2010. There were pieces of it in 2009 because there was a lot of planning that needed to be done because this program hadn't been operated before. So there was a lot of front-end planning that happened. And we had to pause when we did that first quadrennial planning process. It was the first time the utilities were going to be involved in like the selection of the program administrator. So it was going to be their program. It was kind of us turning the keys over, so to speak, to the utilities a little bit more than what they were involved in the prior structure. And we paused doing it sooner. If you remember, I said the program started in 2007 because there was legislation going through both houses on, I think it's called the Clean Energy Jobs Act, that would have addressed some of the same issues that the commission was going to be asked to address. So we wanted to wait for that to be finished before we took up anything we were going to be doing so that there weren't conflicts and confusion over who was going to be doing what on the program. So the quadrennial planning process, it brought kind of structure to the way we looked at the program as a whole. It brought the systematic setting of priorities, goals, and targets by the commission. And that guidance is turned over to the program administrator to then design programs that will meet those goals that the commission establishes. At the same time, the legislation requires programs for all utility customers that pay into the program. So that's another piece that's got to go into the design of programs. Now, you shall have an agricultural program, a commercial program, an industrial program, a residential program. So all that has to get kind of baked in to whatever the program administrator proposes for plans.
People are using energy very differently now than they were in 2001. So how did the program keep up with those changes?
I'd say the program administrator, the implementers, and the PSC staff that work very closely with the program administrator, I would say on a daily basis. We keep up to date with the changes in the market and new technologies that are coming out. We talk to other states. We look at other states to see what they're doing and what has worked, not only what technologies that they may be putting into their program, but how they're delivering it to their customers, because that can make all the difference in terms of how you're getting word out to your customers and how you're structuring the program. It also includes attending conferences, sitting in on webinars. If there's new technologies out, there's lots of webinars out there by national bodies, the Association of energy service professionals, Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and the list goes on and on and on, for groups that are out there that are willing to share knowledge, bring in states that are doing new technologies or different ways of doing things, so they can share it with other states that are doing similar programs.
Let's get into the results. We've seen reports showing billions of dollars in energy savings over the years. And for folks who don't read those reports, what do those savings really mean for everyday people?
It means that at the customer level, those who participate in the programs do save money on their energy bills. In the larger picture, in terms of utility planning, those savings can mean fewer power plants which need to be built, which would further save ratepayers money in the future, should that have to happen, but also prevents any other environmental impacts that may be a result of power plants or anything else involved in delivering energy.
So Wisconsin gets about $4 in benefits for every dollar invested in the program. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, the legislation and the administrative code that was developed after that required that at least for every dollar put into the program, you have to get a dollar of benefits out. So essentially, it said you can't spend more getting this program out there than what these people are getting back out in benefits. The $4 in benefits, which we've been getting the last couple of years, includes economic benefits for the state, such as job creation.
Right.
How many jobs are created in the energy efficiency industry that are a result of the program activity? So it's more than just saving energy. You look at other variables and ripple effects that the program has across the economy, which we see as very important to Wisconsin.
Has there ever been regulators that you've worked with, or even within the PSC, the engineers that you work with, that are surprised with the numbers that you give them?
Yeah, it indicates how kind of separate we are in our little corner
Right.
at the PSC from those folks that do the regulatory job at the PSC, the people who works in rates and audits and planning. I remember back in 2015, 2016 timeframe when the regulatory division was modeling energy savings for a federal government program. All the states were asked to kind of project what their energy savings has been, what it's going to be out a certain number of years. So we gave them the data from the Focus on Energy program, the savings and the cost data, along with the projections going forward based on what we'd achieved in the past. And they didn't believe them. They said it wasn't possible for energy savings to be that cheap. And we said, well, it sort of drove home the point that the cheapest energy is what you don't use. So that was sort of a aha moment to us, and kind of reinforced, why we do this on a daily basis.
That is the best line. The
Yeah.
cheapest energy is the energy that you do not use.
Yep, exactly.
Is there anything in the numbers over the years that has surprised you, made you proud?
I think sometimes you need to look deeper than just the numbers that are reported every year, which, they look good. But sometimes what I'm really interested in when I kind of get the feel goods about the program, it's when I look back at how the program has influenced how customers start to think about energy and how they have learned from the program. We have an industrial program that energy advisors go in and work with the energy personnel in a company. Actually, sometimes it's pretty intense. They go to their monthly meetings for several months and sort of take them around the plant and show them what they should be looking for. And at a certain point, when it's a successful match, these energy managers start to take that on and sort of get it. So they learn how to identify savings on their own. The energy advisors can move on to the next company. But I think it's sort of one of the best things I like about it is that you hear companies that do that. And then these are also the companies that start reaching out to other companies in Wisconsin that maybe use a similar process. They don't make the same product because they don't want to compete with them, but they might do metals or something. But one's making faucets and another one's making medical devices, but they need to use the same process to do that. So when they start to reach out to other companies that, yeah, we're going to go over and talk to so-and-so because they do the same thing we do and we want to know what they're doing and if we can, save energy or do something different that saves energy. I think that's kind of cool when you got Wisconsin companies doing that with each other.
And, that really just leads into the next segment, because energy advisors. So we've talked about energy advisors in past podcasts. And these are the experts who help people, businesses all across the state with energy saving projects. How did that idea come about?
I think it was a function of, and I had to think about this one because they were just there. Um, I think the companies that were hired to do the implementation, way back in the beginning of the program, that's how they operated programs in other states when they worked with just a utility, and like, Illinois, any other states you could pick that had big utility programs, they would hire these same implementers, and that's how they kind of handled working with these customers, particularly business customers. So commercial, industrial, schools, government, agriculture, where you tend to have maybe larger, more complex projects, or there's a lot of pieces to it. It's not just like, yes, they do have some things where it's like, oh, I just need a light. Fine. But when you're making stuff, you might have motors, variable speed drives, a lot of processes that need to be connected, and how you start looking and taking that process apart to identify where you can get your energy savings. And a lot of these, especially schools, in some cases government, and particularly agriculture, if you're dealing with farmers, they don't have the money to go hire an energy consultant to do it.
Right.
It's just too expensive. And so we're like, hey, you got free advice. And I think that was in the early surveys of the program, the most valuable thing that people said the program provided them was a unbiased source of information on what they needed to do in their business. We weren't selling them the furnace. We weren't selling them the lights. We were just telling them, yes, this is what you could be doing. And then they would then get in touch with the companies, the contractors that sold the equipment.
And these advisors they're dedicated working with these companies every year. It's
Yes.
almost the same advisor all the time, which
Yes.
helps then educate where you get the businesses, what you said before, where they are the ones that are now looking at energy management themselves and how to do it.
Yes, and I think what's kind of key, and there's a map on our website that shows where they all are. I mean, they live and work in those areas. They're not all sitting in Madison and then go about. They're all over. And we have the people who work in agriculture, know agriculture. They're educated in agriculture. They worked on farms. They know what happens on a farm. Likewise, on the industrial ones, we have like we call subject matter experts. So a lot of our folks that worked in the pulp and paper mills, for example, worked on pulp and paper because they know, and they know what the barriers might be to be implementing an energy efficiency project because they thought like that at one point in time. And they're taken more seriously. It's one thing to go send in an engineer fresh out of college and doesn't know what the business does, might be treated a bit differently than the seasoned veteran who comes in and says, hey, I used to work for X, company.
Right.
I think this is what you need to look at. At least it was an issue when I worked at a paper company. So I think that's another key thing. We try to match people with their expertise to get projects going.
This is where I get to plug the day in the life stories of our energy advisors. They're on our website or on our YouTube page, but there'll be links added to this podcast on the page so that you can go and watch what an agriculture energy advisor on the farm does, and then industrial engineer at Mercury Marine. So everything that Jolene just said, you can watch it in action.
Great.
You've probably heard thousands of stories, families, schools, small businesses. Are there any that have stuck with you?
It's hard to pick out just one. As you just indicated, the program has gotten much better over the years of documenting the stories, the success stories that some tug at your heartstrings, some just are just cool examples of what the program and how the program has grown, how more people have heard about it so they can actually take advantage of it. But they kind of tell you what the program means to people. It just kind of keeps you grounded when you're working on the day-to-day, more boring stuff in your office, but it's got a higher purpose, okay? And one of my favorite things to do is to go meet with, I kind of alluded to this earlier, with business customers around the state to hear about their success stories, what it's meant for their ability to grow their business. Some have been able to add a new product line because they've saved enough energy, to kind of stay within their budget. Also, like I said before, how to hear how Focus got them started on identifying energy savings opportunities, but now their own staff are energy savvy, so they can just go forth and identify those on their own. And then there's some more personal ones, like mostly on the residential side. There's been several instances where an elderly couple has sent a letter, or a little old lady has sent a letter to the accounting firm that we have that mails out the rebate checks. It's the only address they had
Right.
for Focus on Energy, so it's got the box number up there. And they send these letters, and then we get a PDF in our email saying, okay, we got this. And the letters would thank the program for helping them save money on their energy bill and how much that means to them since they're living on a fixed income.
Yeah.
And the fact that they bothered to send a handwritten letter that in some cases is kind of hard to read, but meant a lot to all of us, including the accounting firm
Right.
that got to see those results, because they're just sending out checks. And sometimes they have an idea of what the program does on a daily basis, and sometimes they don't. But this kind of reinforces to them as well what the program is doing to better people's lives.
So, you just said that even the accountants that are working on the program are confused about what we do. What are the things that people are still confused about over all these years?
I'd say the major one that we still hear from time to time, and I don't know if it's a function of where we're going in to do a program, or I'm not sure, but they still can't believe that the program is offering this money. And so a lot of times they'll call their utility to verify that
Right.
this isn't a scam, and that they're really doing what they're doing, and they're actually going to get that money out the back end. So shows we still have some work to do to get into more homes, but sometimes depending on the program, it might be a larger incentive as well if we're running a pilot. So I could maybe see why they're maybe a little bit more skeptical, but it still is a frequent comment that we hear.
And I mean, I see it on the Facebook page all the time, because people are moving into the state. They might not have had this
True.
before, and that this is a scam or whatever. And
Right.
to have to educate people that no, you get a free pack. And
Yeah, I would say the free packs are often one that sometimes we're like, okay, what's up with that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But kind of like, but yeah. So I think that's the most, one that we hear. I wouldn't say really often. It depends, but I think it's one we still hear.
Definitely. You mentioned the Wisconsin utilities being involved in this from the very beginning. Explain, why is that relationship so important?
It's so important because the customers we work with are their customers. It's their utility customers. They're the people who fund the program. So if we're not linking in and making sure we're reading them correctly and taking the feedback that we get from the utilities, then we're just not going to have a successful program. We try to keep that in mind in pretty much everything we do. We have regular check-ins with the SEER board. They have an annual meeting that we get everybody together, get on the same page with things. If issues come up in between meetings, we contact the board to seek their advice and opinion. And we also go beyond that because they still have staff in each utility that are sort of their energy efficiency conservation staff. So we try to stay plugged in with them too, and work on yet more ways that we can plug into what they're doing on their end. Like we're looking at, we sell smart thermostats. You guys run demand response programs. Can we get those things closely linked enough that it's kind of seamless for a customer? If he would go to your website, he could just look that up and buy a thermostat. Still working on it, but it's one of those technology issues that we're kind of trying to get through. So that those things come up every year. What else could we be doing to further, make it easy for your customers to take advantage of the program? And also surveys indicate that customers view their utility as a reliable source of information. So we try to build off that rather than just not take advantage of that opportunity.
Right. You don't want to lose trust. You don't want
Don't lose trust. And it's like if that's who they're listening to, well then gosh, we're gonna make sure we hear them, in the end. So, and there's a lot of feedback. We give them I think monthly reports on customers, or at least amounts that have gone out, kind of feedback, so that if they got any questions, they could ping us or ask us additional question as well. So we do share data with them as well.
the last component of Focus on Energy, trade ally contractors. So they're the ones out there doing the work. For any contractors listening today who may have heard about the program and maybe were part of it years ago and thinking about coming back or don't know anything about the program, what should they know about being a trade ally contractor that that maybe wasn't clear in the past?
Well, first of all, I'm going to emphasize the Focus program relies very heavily on trade allies. It is a trade ally driven program. Back to those meetings we had way back in the beginning, it's like it's got to run with trade allies to install that energy efficient equipment that's promoted by the program. Focus energy advisors can help them decide which measures they may need to install, but we don't do the installation. That's not our job.
Yep.
We should rely on the experts that do this on a daily basis, and that's their business. So I'd say several reasons why working with Focus is good for trade allies. We've worked over the years to try to keep up, address issues that trade allies have, to make it more attractive for them to work with the program. For example, I mean, they already have access to motivated customers. The trade allies can choose to take the incentive amount off the customer invoice and get paid directly by the program if they want this. Some have adopted a business model of we're going to do all the work for you. They'll do the application. They'll send in the application. You know, it's sort of
Completely hands-on.
completely hands-on. If some don't, some leave it up to the customer, but some view that as that differentiates themselves from other contractors. So they do that. Training, we try to offer training. I think we're going to be looking at that going forward, maybe more training on particular either approaches or technologies. I think there's always something out there that we can be working with that helps them gain a competitive edge. You know, they can say, hey, we've been to this and we know how to do this. Cooperative marketing resources. We work with you as much as we can to co-brand the Focus on Energy label. If you think that's going to make a difference in bringing in customers, we're more than willing to share that with you. We got the Find a Contractor tool on our website. So a person can just type in their address and boom, you know, within a however mile radius, they can put that in. All the contractors that fit that profile will come up on our website. So it's another marketing tool, if you will, for the trade allies. And we also have developed, and I think we're working on updating that too, is a portal for trade allies to check on the projects that are going through Focus so they can see what the status of it is in terms of the payment process. So we are listening to them. We do take in, you know, advice when we can. Sometimes it maybe doesn't move as fast as what they would like, but we are listening to them. I would add one more thing. We always heard about an ACH process, electronic payment, not checks. So we developed that so they get paid quicker.
That's always good.
Always good. So yes, I would say always keep sending in your comments, suggestions. The inbox is always open for those.
And I can tell you those tools on the website for the trade allies, as well as for residents to find the trade allies, and for businesses. There's lots of search tools on there. Focusonenergy.com, get started, is where you will, where as a residential customer, you can begin that journey. There's a business tool that is being developed and being still worked on. So focusonenergy.com. There's my other plug. Jolene, you mentioned before, you know, the technology changing. So smart thermostats, heat pumps, battery storage, you name it. What do you think are the biggest opportunities coming up for Wisconsin?
I think on the residential side, one of them that you mentioned, smart thermostats, which is an example of kind of a connected device. You can operate it from your phone. And anything that uses software seems to be, I know there's other pieces of appliances and whatnot in the home that now can be handled by your phone, your refrigerator, and a number of other things. As you handle dishwasher,
Yeah.
you can order pizza on your smart thermostat
It's weird.
if you want to. I don't know. But then on the commercial business side, more you know, motion sensors, they've been around kind of forever. But building automation systems and controls where, you know, you can control the energy in, energy out, tune it to more calibrate it more towards weather conditions, you know, what have you, and the seasons of the year. I always think of working in state buildings where there was a central kind of system, and it's like, well, it's, you know, October 15th, we're turning the air conditioning on, and it doesn't turn back on until, you know, May, but then in April you got these hot days, and it's like, well, we can't turn it back on yet, you know.
Right, right.
Not that other businesses would have that. That's an extreme example, but you can calibrate that kind of stuff with building automation systems. Turn your heat on and your cooling on whenever you need it, and off as well.
How does focus on energy help the state stay strong and competitive as the energy world keeps changing?
I might have alluded to this a little bit before, but basically you have to keep in mind, according to the Energy Information Administration, and our Wisconsin statistics book, Wisconsin uses about 6 times more energy than it produces.
Wow.
Which means we're importing. We don't have coal reserves in the state. We don't have gas reserves in the state. We don't have oil wells in our state. So aside from the renewables that we do have, hydropower, wind, solar, we're bringing all that other energy, if you will, in the coal that gets burned, the gas that gets put through pipelines. So every time Focus helps customers save energy, we are reducing the amount of energy that needs to be imported to the state. At the residential level, homeowners are going to have more dollars to spend at other businesses, more disposable income. As I've mentioned, on the business side, industrial and commercial customers can produce more products or open a new product line. And I remember back in the recession of 2008 to 2010, I don't know what they're including as an end date.
Right.
That we thought we were going to have program activity decrease because who's going to want to spend money on these projects when we don't really know what's going on with the economy? But it actually increased. I mean, it was one of our highest years we had ever had because some companies were forward looking and said, well, we're not doing a third shift now. Now we can install this stuff that we've been waiting
Oh, I didn't even think
to
about
install.
it.
I didn't either. We were like totally surprised. Now we can install this stuff because we have one shift that's not working, so we'll work on it at that point. And we also heard from, it wasn't an official survey, it was anecdotal, but it was from more than one contractor that, without the focus program and the incentives you gave to push that customer to do a project, we would have had to lay employees off. But the rebates helped us get through this rough patch. So that's a business, job creation, job retention, if you will. So again, sort of those ripple effects that the program has that people don't always understand, how it works through the economy.
And we have those success stories on our website where you could hear some of these business owners saying, sometimes wouldn't even be open still had we not been able to work with Focus on Energy and get these incentives. So keeping people employed.
Yeah.
Sometimes keeping towns open.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes there's, a lot of small ones, but they need help in getting the energy efficiency stuff done.
So the new federal rebates, the Inflation Reduction Act, has Homes and Here, those two programs. And the last podcast talks about them, so you should listen to it if you do not know what the Inflation Reduction Act's programs are about. How does Focus on Energy work together with those programs to help the people of Wisconsin?
Well, if you didn't know, the State Energy Office is also located in the Public Service Commission. So they're the entity that receives those federal dollars for the IRA programs, the Homes and the Here. And the PSC decided that in order to get the programs out faster, that it probably made sense to use what we call the Focus platform, use the same processing, check sending out system, the same implementers. So otherwise, other states were having to put this all out to bid, which could be a 3, 6, 9-month process before you can get a program up and running. So the commission made a decision that, yes, we should use Focus on Energy. We are going to keep the funding and management separate from the core Focus program.
Yes.
So that's over here, that's over here. It's being evaluated. We got our compliance agent that's going to make sure funds did not cross over in any way, shape, or form. But also working with the same implementers further down the line, customers in some cases can stack their rebate funds. So they can get some from the IRA programs, which are much higher, depending on how you qualify on the low income side. You can get a Focus incentive on top of that. So it helps to see, okay, what's going on with that? What's going on with that? And you can see the whole picture a little bit better because we have the same implementer that's working on both programs.
And we have seen when we're stacking these rebates with the program and Focus on Energy, the IRA program and Focus on Energy program, and sometimes it could almost be
huge.
$0
Yeah.
for some, depending on your qualifications.
Mhm.
So it's amazing.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So we're wrapping up here. And I have 2 more questions. What's the one thing you really want people to understand about why energy efficiency matters?
We often talk about energy, environment, and economic benefits that come with energy efficiency, or the win-win-win of energy efficiency. And that's been alluded to in our conversation here today as well. By that, it means we help residents and businesses save energy and money. It helps the environment on so many levels, but especially with emission reductions. You name the emission, it's got a reduction because if you don't use the energy, you know, you don't need it. And it's good for the economy as well, since customers have more disposable income to spend on other goods and services. It helps businesses stay competitive, and it creates jobs in energy-related businesses.
If someone in Wisconsin wanted to make one smart energy move in 2026, what would you tell them to do?
Contact the Focus on Energy program.
That's a
Is that too obvious? You give the website and the 1-800 number.
You got it. You got it.
But for residential customers, as we're thinking as time moves along here and we look at the next thing, the smartest move, and I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but the smartest thing to do is make your building shell, i.e. your home, more energy efficient by insulating it to the extent that models tell you it should be insulated, air sealing as much as you can so you can prevent the cool air going out in the summer and the warm air from escaping in the winter. We call those deep retrofits. But if you do that, anything else you do can be sized appropriate, like your heating equipment, and will function, and it will also function more efficiently since you won't be losing your heat or your AC, as the case may be. It can also, if you're so inclined to look into solar panels, kind of right sizing your energy efficiency means you can get the right amount of solar panels to handle your electricity usage. So you're not paying more for those
Exactly.
if you don't need them all, But I know there's some debate as to which you do first, but we had always looked kind of as efficiency first. Probably makes sense. So I think those would be the big things. Kind of basic,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still there in terms of what you need to do.
And you didn't even know this, but next month's podcast is why you should start with insulation and air
Okay.
sealing. So
Perfect. No, I did not know that.
you just pitched the next podcast, which
Wonderful.
we will get into more of why Jolene is saying the shell, starting with the shell, is so important. Jolene, thank you so much, not just for being here today, but for everything you've done to make Focus on Energy what it is. 25 years is an amazing achievement, and we are so glad to have you here to celebrate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To our listeners, if you want to find out how to save energy, get rebates, or hear more stories, visit focusonenergy.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, share the podcast with a friend. We'll catch you next time on What's Up, Wisconsin.
What's Up, Wisconsin is produced by Focus on Energy, your energy efficiency and renewable energy program. Focus on Energy partners with Wisconsin's utilities, providing residents and businesses solutions, lowering your energy cost, saving you money. Focus on Energy turns every dollar invested into more than $4 for Wisconsin and its economy. Visit focusonenergy.com and start your energy efficiency journey today.